Centuries ago, Spanish writers described an Incan maze as the place where one gets lost. For 400 years, it was a spooky ghost story and a local legend. But today's researchers have modern devices that can see through the ground. And amazingly, they've found a perfectly engineered labyrinth more than a mile long. What was it really for? And could you actually get lost? Well, let's find out. Long before the first Europeans set foot in South America, the Inca were busy running a massive empire. At its height in the 1400s, this empire stretched over 3,200 miles. But what's cool is that they ran it without a conventional written language. Instead, they used something called a quipu, which was basically a bunch of colorful strings tied in different ways. It was like a spreadsheet made of chords. Special record keepers could run their fingers over these knots to track taxes or figure out how many potatoes were sitting in a warehouse hundreds of miles away. The empire is also famous for its massive 25,000-mile road network. Since they didn't have horses, they relied on a relay system of professional runners known as chasqui. These guys were basically Olympic-caliber athletes in a daily relay race. One was resting while the other was running to reach the next checkpoint. This way, they were able to cover about 150 miles in just one day, passing along information and smaller items. The Inca didn't let a massive canyon stop their system. Instead, they literally wove bridges out of grass. They had about 200 of those hanging over ravines long before Europe had its first suspension bridge. But since grass tends to rot, this was a yearly maintenance project. You can still see one of those at the Quetzalcoatl Bridge in Peru. Every June, local villagers braid fresh grass into new cables and rebuild the whole bridge by hand. All of these roads eventually led back to the heart of the empire, the capital Cusco. It was considered holy, and the Incas even shaped parts of the city to make it look like a puma. The fortress of Sacsayhuaman and the walls were an engineering wonder. The Inca hauled huge stones uphill without engines or steel cables, then fit those blocks together like Tetris. Peru was always troubled by earthquakes, so this technique was used for safety. When the ground shakes, stones don't snap and crack. They wiggle a little, kind of like they're dancing. Then the shaking stops and the blocks settle back into place. That's why ancient Inca walls are still standing, while modern brick buildings nearby have fallen apart. For centuries, people kept talking about the possibility of a hidden underground root system beneath the city. However, you can't just start digging up a modern city looking for treasure. That's why researchers use the high-tech X-ray vision, ground-penetrating radar to spot empty space, plus sound surveys to double-check. The data shows a connected underground network stretching almost 1.5 miles. One end sits under the Coricancha, the Temple of the Sun, once famous for its walls covered in sheets of gold. The other end points straight toward Sacsayhuaman. That's a direct secret link between the city's holiest altar and its strongest fort. These tunnels are not crawl spaces. The scans estimate passages around 8 to 9 feet wide and about 5 feet tall, big enough for people to walk through. That size shows they were made to be regularly used. Researchers think the Inca built them with a cut and cover method. They dug a long, shallow trench, lined it with stone walls, laid stone slabs across the top, then filled it back in and rebuilt the street above. That kept the route hidden in plain sight. And it didn't get crushed because it wasn't deep. The tunnels are only about 6 to 10 feet below ground, so the weight above isn't enough to cave in a stone roof. The sidewalls hold back the earth, and fitted stones help the structure survive shaking. That same earthquake dancing logic applies underground, too. The stones can shift slightly without snapping. Underground, there's no natural light. Every turn looks the same. Add branches, darkness, and echoes, and you can lose direction fast without a guide. Local stories say entrances were sealed, partly because people kept getting lost, especially those going in looking for treasure and not coming back out. One of the most famous legends in Cusco is about a man who supposedly found an open entrance centuries ago. The story goes that he spent weeks lost in the pitch black before finally climbing out of a hole near the Sun Temple. He supposedly emerged clutching a solid gold ear of corn, then passed away on the spot. Ah, the irony. While researchers haven't found any gold corn yet, the radar proves that a route matching that legend is real. The Inca were